Hi everyone, this is Darius Sulam from Inside Scientific, the online environment for life science webinars, virtual events, interviews, and educational content that helps you do your best work. Our Real Science sessions focus on connecting with the researchers, educators, and industry professionals from all walks of life that make scientific discovery and innovation possible. We talk about their work, their passions, their pitfalls, why they got into science in the first place, and where the road lies ahead. Today, I'm talking with Michelle Wong, a junior at University of California, Davis. Michelle recently was one of 10 students who was awarded the Scientist.com STEM Research NIL Award for promising undergraduate researchers. Scientist.com's goal is to empower and connect scientists worldwide and accelerate scientific discovery. Their digital research platform combines sophisticated AI technology with white-glove research concierge support to enable scientists to run more innovative experiments in less time and at lower cost. Scientist.com operates private enterprise marketplaces for most of the world's major pharmaceutical companies, over 100 biotechnology companies, and the U.S. National Institutes of Health. This award is part of Scientist.com's commitment to support and mentor students who are at the beginning of their education and careers in STEM. In addition to a grant of $5,000 each, the 10 award winners are collaborating with Scientist.com as brand ambassadors. All right, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump into the first question here. Where did you grow up? Have you always been interested in the sciences? And if not, what sparked your interest?
Yeah, so I'm from San Francisco, California. I actually grew up really close to Golden Gate Park, actually 2 blocks away. And so I think that was a really great place to grow up. I went to a middle school where I learned math in Cantonese up until 7th grade, and then in Mandarin, math and Mandarin in 8th grade. And then I went to a public high school that was pretty well known for STEM. And yeah, that's kind of like my education and how I kind of went to college from there. I feel like I've always kind of been interested in science just from how I've been raised by my parents. They were always very encouraging and very focused on, telling me I can do whatever I want. They're both kind of in healthcare. So, very early on, they kind of nurtured the idea in me that I could do whatever I want. And so, growing up, I think one memorable story that really stuck with me was back in 6th grade in my geology class. It was the very first day, and I was super nervous. So I guess her name's Miss Ernst. She just went to the class, walked up, and she was like, "All right, guys, we're going to do a quick exercise. You have 20 minutes. Now, why don't you draw like what a scientist looks like to you?" So she gave us a piece of paper and all the color pens and crayons, typical 6th grade. And then everyone sat down and drew whatever they thought a scientist looks like. After about like 10 minutes or 20 minutes or so, she was like, "All right, guys, let's see." And she walked around and she looked at my image, and I had drawn basically myself, like 20 years older in a white coat with colored beakers and bubbles popping out, and I think one of them was engulfed in flames and the laboratory was about to be destroyed. But that was the image I drew. And she was like, "Michelle, why did you draw a woman, because apparently everyone else in the room had drawn not a woman. I think most people had drawn Einstein, his crazy hair and a white lab coat." And so she was like, "Michelle, why did you draw a woman?" And I was like, well, I was petrified, 6th grade people. I don't know. It was just a weird time. I was a transfer student and I don't like being called out. And I was like a tiny voice. I was like, "Well, girls can be scientists too." And she's like, yeah, exactly. So that was a very memorable experience. I think I've been really lucky with my professors and as people who've taught me. I had a really memorable, I'll get into that later, but I had a lot of really memorable teachers who really shaped me. And I also was really lucky in that my parents really believed in me and that I could, it just instilled in me, I could do whatever I want. So it was never a question of can I do it? It was more what area do I go into kind of thing. And so that's kind of where I jumped off into college, and I applied undeclared to all my colleges basically, and kind of just figured it out from there.
Wow, that's an awesome story. And of course, I love the fact that you were the one to go outside the norm and not draw that Einstein character that everyone thinks a scientist is supposed to look like. So awesome. Second question: where are you currently studying? What is your major? You said you were undeclared. So how did we get to the point that you are today? Can you tell us a little bit about the research that you're currently doing?
Yeah. I feel like I came into college kind of pre-med, just because my parents are both in healthcare. They're like, Michelle, it's a good career path. You might want to consider it, a lot of stability. So I came into college like kind of intending that. I chose Davis because of its like very plentiful research and clinical opportunities. There's a lot of really great student-run clinics in Davis. And so, I came in undeclared. I tried a lot of different things. I was a plant biology major for a few quarters. I was a genetics and genomics major up until my towards the end of my second year. And then around my third year, or towards the end of my second, beginning of third, I really realized I wanted to do something else. So I decided to major in statistics, and that's my current major. I'm a third year, rising fourth year at UC Davis. And I think it like took a lot of exploring to kind of get there. And I am really grateful I wasn't like very stuck on one career path or one major, and I was very open to exploring. I took a few plant bio classes, realized I wasn't super interested in it. I was tutoring statistics since my freshman year. So I kind of had that baseline, I guess. I always knew I would do a stats minor. Then I was a genomics and genetics major for a while because I was doing, I'll talk about that a little more probably later, but I was doing like retinal-based genomics research. So I thought that would be a good major. And then I kind of realized how important coding was and that I was really interested in it. And I really liked the analysis part of research more than the collecting data part. So that's kind of my major background. I think the important lesson from it is not to like just stick to one and kind of be open to exploring. So about my research, I'll just talk about my collegiate research because that's probably more interesting. So I joined a lab my freshman year. It was a wet lab based mouse model retinal degeneration lab where we were looking at how like we were turning on and off certain genes in the mice and then kind of just seeing how that affected the the retina in these mice. And we would like take out the eye, enucleate it, section it off, stain it for what we were looking for, like usually cell death or something like that. So that was a really good basic wet lab. I was there for a year and a half. And then I transitioned over to my current lab, which is the Lewis Carvajal Kimona lab in UC Davis. And there I'm a bioinformatics researcher, so it's more computational. I kind of just sit at the computer all day and I'm just a code monkey. I previously helped analyze or do quality control analysis between two different variant colors. So what that is we're just looking looking at specific, or we have the whole genome of next generation sequencing, like genome samples. There's like whole exome, whole genome kind of thing. And we look for mutations that are just like mutations. And these are the samples of people who have cancer. And so we're just like looking for mutations that could potentially have influenced the cancer or maybe caused it in some way. I was doing, so in order to do that, you have variant callers, and different callers will call different variants differently. So I was just comparing and contrasting two variant colors, and that's how I got the scholarship. My current project is a little more interesting. It makes a little more sense. I feel like the variant calling is a little more abstract. Currently, I'm working on analyzing 250 gastric cancer patient samples, and I'm looking for counts of two pathogens, H. pylori and EBV. Epstein-Barr virus, for anyone interested. I think it's related to like mono, like the lip thing. So super interesting. And these are pretty well-known pathogens that contribute to gastric cancer. So I'm just looking for the counts in the genome to see how much there is, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned a little bit about some research related to the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And in your biography, you mentioned that when you were younger, you almost went blind due to high myopia. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you overcame that and whether that experience had an impact on your decision to get into research?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a really interesting story, and I just putting it out there that I'm not like clinical person. So anything I say may or may not be fully accurate. But yeah, I'll just tell you what I know. So when I was born a little weirdly. I had a nuchal cord wrapped around my throat. And so I was born via forceps delivery, and that caused like ocular trauma. So my left and right eye are different prescriptions. My left eye is or at the time, my left eye was myopic and my right eye was presbyopic. So nearsighted, farsighted. So that was interesting. I also have a family history of myopia. All my family members have it. My dad went legally blind. So yeah, it's just very, very bad, like myopia genes, I guess. And then, so when I was really young, I had problems seeing the board in classrooms. I had problems just like reading. I went to an eye therapist, who would help me like read properly, because whenever my eyes just had a problem focusing. So he would give me a little booklet, and then there'd be like little characters, and he would tell me if they're moving or not, or he would ask me if they're moving or not moving, and he'd tell me what I was supposed to see, and kind of just train my eyes to like see properly. I don't know what that was a result of. I think that was a result of the ocular trauma. And my right eye still has a lot of corneal scarring from that. And then from there, my myopia really kicked in. When I was 8 years old, my prescription was minus 4 point something, I think 4.7 diopters in my left eye. My right eye was like +1 or something like that. And so that's really, really high for a 8-year-old. Minus 10 diopters is legally blind. You might know that. And so I was basically halfway to becoming blind. So my mom is really concerned, and she's an optometrist, luckily enough. And she heard about this new technology called orthokeratology. It's basically a hard contact lens that you wear at night, and it reshapes your cornea. And it allows you to it basically halts the elongation of the eyeball, which is basically what myopia is. And yeah, it worked for me. It's basically just stopped my nearsightedness where it was at. I couldn't do it on my right eye because it had corneal scarring. But yeah, I was super lucky. It was a technology not approved by the FDA. I was one of the first people to adapt this technology in San Francisco. Honestly, just super lucky. My mom was an optometrist and she heard about it. And yeah, she's still doing a lot of it. I was a guinea pig, basically, and I don't know what I would have done if it didn't work. So I think a lot of what I do, I was super interested in eye stuff initially, and I was dead set on becoming an ophthalmologist as a result of kind of like my past. I did a lot of clinical research previously in high school too. I worked in an optometry. I did a lot of stuff for the FDA, not a lot of stuff for the FDA, but I helped with the clinical trials for FDA stage 3 for Alcon contact lenses. That was interesting. And then I joined my first lab in UC Davis, which was the eye lab, because I was really interested in the eyes. I came to realize I actually didn't like the eyes as much as I thought. It's a lot of neurobio, and I just, yeah, some people really are just really interested in the brain. I just realized I wasn't one of those people. So I kind of transitioned after, and, it's just a matter of finding what you like and what you don't like. And I think my background really gave me a launching pad into science, and into research, but you don't necessarily have to stick to your story or stick to a predestined path if you don't really like it. And so I think I'm very grateful for my past, really grateful for the people who surround me. And just lucky I didn't go blind.
That's a really awesome story. And those people who surrounded you during that period obviously must have had some kind of impact on your journey here. So that leads me into the next question. who was or is the greatest influence on your career or your education path right now? And do you have a mentor that has played a significant role?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually thinking about this, and I was trying to pinpoint one person, and I don't think I can. I feel like I just had a lot of people in my life who have influenced me, and it kind of depends on the stage of my life, like to the extent that they influenced me. I think when I was really young, my parents were definitely the biggest influence, as they should be in a kid's life. They're kind of the reasons I chose to go to Davis. They actually went to Davis, and they met here. Fun fact. And they were the reasons why I was interested in pre-med in the first place, I guess, besides my like lived experiences. And then once I got to college, I would say in each of the research labs I've been in, there's always like one really important woman who like kind of shapes my experience and is really involved in training me. In my first lab, it was the junior specialist, Sonia Frick. In my current lab, it's also the junior specialist, Catherine, and she's really great in just whenever I run a piece of code and it doesn't work, I can always just go to her and be like, hey, this is what I've tried, this is what's not working, and then she always helps me figure it out. And she always validates like my confusion, which I really appreciate, and I really think it's really important that my mentors are someone who I can kind of see myself in. And that's something I try to actively choose. But I've also had a lot of great, I've had women and men mentors. Like my high school calculus BC teacher, really, he was, really great figure in my life. And he also was a really pivotal, he played a really pivotal role in my high school career. And I remember when COVID first hit, he was the first person I reached out to, and I was like, hey, can we talk? Like, I'm really like worried about how COVID will affect my high school career. I wasn't doing so hot during COVID in calculus during COVID, just because I couldn't really focus. And yeah, he was really, really, really great. And I remember when I first got into colleges, I called him up and I was like, hey, I'm like debating between these two schools, and he helped me choose. He was like, this is why I think you should choose this one. But it's ultimately up to you. So yeah, a lot of really great people. Just very lucky.
Awesome. And out of all of these people, these teachers and mentors and family members, are there any qualities that you think you've noticed in them that you'd like to carry on when you eventually step into their shoes in the future?
Yeah. I think I think the most key role or key characteristic I hope to bring from them is like the ability to like feel seen. I feel like I ask a lot of questions, and whenever they like kind of validate it, or if they're able to break down a very complicated topic in a not so complicated way with visual diagrams and kind of just diffuse all the like confusion in my head, I really appreciate that. And I'm trying to also kind of be that person. I started tutoring, both individual private tutoring and tutoring with the UC Davis Academic Assistance and Tutoring Center when I was a freshman, which is not normal. I just got really lucky. Luck, and also, everything's not just luck, but sometimes I like to think it is. So I started tutoring my freshman year, and I tutor like both individual people who just like ask me to tutor them. I also tutor first generation college students, student athletes, PhD students sometimes. I mainly tutor statistics now because it's just what is interesting to me. But one thing I always try to bring back into the sessions is that like, yes, it's really confusing. And a lot of these people had never touched like code before. So for a lot of them, it's their first venture into like our studio, their first time kind of seeing all these equations. I really try to like, ground them and just like, it's a very, very steep learning process. It's your first class. Like, don't let it discourage you from like taking more classes like this in the future, and just trying to like make the concepts a lot easier to understand. I feel like we need a lot more women in like statistics or CS. I know my data science class is 75% men, but it is what it is. And so I really just try to encourage people to not just see the hard parts, but, try to get past it and, really enjoy the process of like fixing a problem or solving a bug or something.
Well, it's really great that you're able to take the qualities from your mentors and then apply it to your tutoring and pass on that style to others, and reminding them that science isn't done in a silo. You certainly can ask for help and expect to receive it from other people. That's awesome. So my last question for you today is, do you have any advice for younger students who are interested into getting into research, but they might be intimidated or not know where to begin?
Yeah, I feel like it really depends on your situation, like where you are financially, geographically, and personally. Like, I feel like a lot of it is your own, like knowing you can. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, at least in my opinion, in science, and a lot of self-doubt that can creep in. Like, is this, like, did it fail because of me? Or like, is this a me thing, or is it like external kind of thing? And so I feel like a lot of work needs to be done within first, and then kind of going from there. If someone is a high school student and interested in research, I recommend just reaching out to a professor in a university near them, and just saying, hey, just telling them a bit of background, like, I'm blank, I'm interested in your research because of blank. Do you have like space for an additional undergrad or additional high schooler? Like, this is what I can bring. Or if you can't bring anything, that's okay. Like, I'm super willing to learn. That's kind of how I got my first gig in high school. I interned at UCSF for a bit, in a liver cancer lab, and that really helped me get into research really early on in college. Yeah, I know more about San Francisco Bay Area. Stanford has a lot of great summer programs. SF State has a lot of really good PIs who are really interested in mentoring. And also UCSF has a lot of really great programs for all San Francisco public schools. So just kind of see what resources are available to you. Make sure you know why you want to do it. And know that if something doesn't work out, it's not you, it's the cell's fault for dying on you. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your insights, Michelle. It was really awesome talking to you today.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for inviting me. And I'd like to thank, everyone who helped me get here. So thank you, scientist.com, for supporting this podcast and just making this possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Real Science and that you'll tune in to future episodes where scientists and students, just like you, answer questions about their life, their work, and share insights into what it's like to be doing real science. Don't forget to subscribe.